Admiral Zekthul stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking out at the stars through the great viewing window. His ship was 3 kilometers long and packed with enough weapons to destroy entire planets. Behind him, 300 other ships waited in perfect formation. This was the 7th conquest fleet of the Kethar Dominion, and Zekthul was proud to command it. The bridge around him buzzed with activity. Crew members worked at their stations, their blue-skinned faces lit by the glow of their screens. The Kethar were a proud warrior race. They had conquered 164 star systems in the last 300 years. No enemy had ever defeated them in battle. "Admiral," called out his communications officer, "we have received new orders from High Command." Zekthul turned from the window, his forearms crossed behind his back in the traditional pose of authority. "Show me," he said. The main screen, lit up with the image of Supreme Commander Vorthak, the leader of all Dominion forces. The old warrior's scarred face showed the marks of countless battles. "Admiral Zekthul," the commander said, "we have discovered a new target for conquest." Zekthul felt excitement rise in his chest. It had been 6 months since their last victory. His crew was getting restless. They needed another world to conquer. "What system, Commander?" "A primitive world called Earth," Vorthak replied. "Our scouts have been watching them for several cycles. They are pathetically weak. They still use chemical rockets to reach their own moon. Their weapons are crude metal projectiles. They even fight wars among themselves with explosive devices." The bridge crew laughed. "Chemical rockets? Metal projectiles?" These humans sounded like children playing with toys. Zekthul had seen such primitive races before. They usually surrendered the moment they saw a Dominion warship. "How many ships do they have?" Zekthul asked. "Perhaps a few hundred small craft in orbit around their world," the commander said. "Nothing that could threaten even one of our fighters. This will be easy target practice for your fleet." Zekthul smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "When do we depart?" "Immediately. High Command wants this conquest completed quickly. The humans have been broadcasting radio signals across the galaxy. We cannot allow other races to think we ignore such annoyances." The screen went dark. Zekthul turned to his crew. "You heard the Supreme Commander. Set course for the Saul system. All ships are to maintain attack formation." His navigation officer, a young Kethar named Rixel, looked up from his console. "Admiral, the human system is 47 light-years from our current position. At maximum warp, we will arrive in 18 standard days." "Excellent," Zekthul said. "That gives us time to study these humans and plan their destruction." Over the next few days, intelligence reports poured in about Earth and its inhabitants. The humans had only recently developed nuclear weapons, crude devices that split atoms to create explosions. They had barely begun to explore their own star system. Their largest spacecraft could carry only a few crew members. But what amazed the Dominion officers most was how the humans fought each other. They had been at war for their entire recorded history. They used simple guns, bombs, and vehicles to kill each other by the millions. They showed no unity, no discipline, no honor in battle. "They are savages," said Commander Kexton, Zekthul's second-in-command. "They kill their own kind for sport. At least we fight for glory and conquest." "Indeed," Zekthul agreed. "These humans will learn what real warriors look like." The only voice of concern came from Scout Captain Vexinen, who had been monitoring Earth's radio transmissions for months. She was a careful officer, known for her attention to detail. During the daily briefing, she raised her hand. "Admiral, I have noticed something strange in the human broadcasts," she said. Zekthul looked annoyed. What could possibly be strange about primitive radio signals? "There are gaps, sir. Periods where certain types of transmissions simply stop. And our sensors have detected unusual energy readings from their moon." "What kind of energy readings?" Vexinen checked her datapad. "Unknown, sir. The patterns do not match any known technology, but they are very faint. It could be natural phenomenon." Commander Kexton laughed. "You worry too much, Captain. These humans probably have some primitive nuclear reactors on their moon. Nothing that could threaten us." "Still," Vexinen continued, I recommend caution. We know very little about human psychology or capabilities. Perhaps we should send a smaller force first, to test their defenses. The bridge fell silent. Zekathol's eyes narrowed. In 300 years of conquest, the Dominion had never needed to test enemy defenses. They had never needed caution. Their power was absolute. Captain Vexnin, Zekthol said coldly, are you suggesting that 300 Dominion warships cannot handle a few primitive humans? Vexnin lowered her head. No, Admiral. I simply think... You think too much, Zekthol interrupted. The humans have chemical rockets. We have quantum drives. They have metal bullets. We have plasma cannons that can melt asteroids. They fight with sticks and stones while we command the power of stars themselves. The other officers nodded in agreement. They had heard this speech before, during their 164 previous victories. It was always the same. The enemy looked dangerous until they met Dominion firepower. Besides, Commander Kexton added, look at their history. The humans cannot even unite their own planet. They are divided into hundreds of different nations, all fighting each other. When we arrive, they will probably ask us to help them destroy their enemies. More laughter filled the bridge. This had happened before too. Many primitive races were so busy fighting themselves that they welcomed Dominion rule as a way to end their wars. Zekthol walked back to the great window. Outside, his fleet moved through space like a school of metal fish. Each ship bristled with weapons. Each crew was trained from birth for war. They were the finest military force in the known galaxy. Tell me about their weapons again, he said. His intelligence officer Dexmar pulled up the files. Crude explosive devices, Admiral. They use chemical reactions to propel metal objects at high speed. Their largest weapons can destroy buildings, but they require enormous machines to transport them. And their space defenses? Non-existent. Sir, they have a few small satellites in orbit, but these are for communication only. No shields, no weapons, no armor. A single fighter could destroy them all in minutes. Zekthul nodded. This was going to be easier than he thought. Perhaps he would not even need to destroy any human cities. A simple demonstration of dominion, power would be enough to make them surrender. What about their population, he asked. Approximately 8 billion humans on the planet's surface, Dexmar replied. They will make excellent workers in the Dominion mines. 8 billion. That was more than most worlds, but still manageable. The Dominion had enslaved larger populations before. Humans would probably be good workers. They seemed to enjoy fighting each other, so they might even make decent soldiers if properly trained. Admiral, Vexinen spoke up again. There is one more thing. The humans have been very quiet recently. Their military communications have almost stopped. It is as if they are preparing for something. Zekthol sighed. Captain, you see threats? Everywhere. The humans have probably detected our approach and are cowering in fear. This is normal behavior for primitive races. But, sir, their behavior pattern does not match our previous conquests. Usually, primitive worlds increase their communications when they detect our fleets. They send desperate messages to each other, trying to organize defenses. These humans have gone almost completely silent. Commander Kexton waved his hand dismissively. Maybe they have given up already. Smart choice. It will save us time and ammunition. The days passed quickly as the fleet approached the Saul system. Zekthol spent his time reviewing battle plans and imagining his victory celebration. This would be his third conquest as fleet admiral. After this success, he might be promoted to supreme commander himself. His crew shared his confidence. They had never lost a battle. They had never even been seriously challenged. Their quantum shields could stop any known weapon. Their plasma cannons could punch through any known armor. Their fighters could outrun and outgun any enemy ship. The humans had none of these advantages. They were trapped on their single world with primitive technology and no allies. It would be like crushing insects. On the final day before reaching Earth's system, Zekthul called a meeting of all ship commanders. The holographic images of 300 captains filled his briefing room. These were veteran warriors, each commanding a ship capable of destroying moons. Tomorrow we will arrive at Earth, Zekthul announced. This will be our most effortless conquest yet. The humans have no space fleet, no orbital defenses, and no advanced weapons. We will demand their surrender and give them 1 day to comply. If they refuse, we will demonstrate our power by destroying one of their cities. Which city should we target? Asked Captain Morthek of the heavy cruiser Vengeance. Their largest population center, Zekthul replied. Show them that resistance is futile. Admiral, said Captain Velcor of the carrier Domination, should we take prisoners? Human specimens might be valuable for study. Zekthul considered this. Take their leaders alive if possible. The rest can be processed as standard slaves. The meeting continued for 2 hours as they planned every detail of the conquest, where to position the fleet, how to broadcast their demands, which ships would handle planetary bombardment if necessary. Everything was routine, based on procedures refined through 164 victories. Only Scout Captain Vexnin seemed troubled. After the meeting, she approached Zekthul privately. Admiral, I must speak with you about the energy readings from Earth's moon. Zekthul was tired of her concerns. What about them? They have grown stronger as we approach, and the patterns have changed. It almost seems like the moon is watching us. Impossible. The humans barely have the technology to reach their moon, much less build installations there. That is what troubles me, sir. Our scans show no surface structures, no ships, nothing. But the energy signatures are definitely there, and they are definitely artificial. Zekthul stared at her for a long moment. Vexinen was a good officer, but she worried too much. Every conquest brought new unknowns, and she always found something to fear. Captain, he said finally, in 3 centuries of conquest, has the Dominion ever encountered a primitive race that could threaten us? No, sir. Have we ever failed to achieve complete victory? No, sir. Then trust in Dominion superiority. Tomorrow these humans will learn what it means to face the greatest military force in the galaxy. Vexnin saluted and left, but her worried expression remained. Zekthul dismissed her concerns and returned to his quarters to rest. Tomorrow would be a glorious day. As the fleet slept, automated systems continued their approach to Earth. Sensors swept the human system, cataloging every satellite, every space station, every piece of orbital debris. The data confirmed everything they already knew. Earth was defenseless, but deep in the sensor logs, patterns emerged that no Kethar noticed. Space around Earth seemed to bend in subtle ways. Energy readings flickered in and out of existence, and the moon, silent and airless, somehow watched their approach with invisible eyes. The 7th Conquest Fleet moved steadily toward its destiny, confident in its power and certain of its victory. Behind them lay 164 conquered worlds. Ahead lay Earth, apparently helpless and primitive. None of them suspected that they were flying toward the greatest surprise in Dominion history. Deep beneath the surface of Luna, humanity's moon, Admiral Sarah Chen walked through corridors that officially did not exist. The Solar Defense Command Center was humanity's greatest secret, carved from solid rock and hidden behind technology that made it invisible to any known sensors. Sarah moved with the confidence of someone who had prepared for this moment her entire life. At 52, she was humanity's most experienced space commander, though the public had never heard her name. Her gray hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her uniform bore no insignia that any civilian would recognize. The corridor she walked through stretched for nearly a kilometer, lined with blast doors thick enough to survive direct nuclear hits. But nuclear weapons were ancient technology compared to what lay behind these doors. Humanity had moved far beyond such crude tools. "Admiral," called a voice from behind her. She turned to see Dr. Marcus Webb hurrying to catch up. The physicist was 10 years younger than Sarah, with the excited energy of someone who had just solved an impossible problem. "Doctor?" Sarah nodded. "Are your systems ready?" "More than ready," Marcus replied, his eyes bright with pride. "The Dimensional phase generators are operating at 100% efficiency. All 12 ships are fully charged and standing by. Sarah smiled. 12 ships to face 300. The numbers seemed impossible. But humanity had learned long ago that victory was not about having more guns. It was about having better ideas. They reached the main command center, a vast chamber filled with displays showing the approaching alien fleet. Technicians worked quietly at their stations, tracking every enemy vessel with precision that the aliens could not imagine. "Status report," Sarah called out. Lieutenant Commander Torres looked up from his station. "The Kethar fleet will reach our outer sensor perimeter in 18 hours. They are maintaining standard conquest formation exactly as we predicted." Sarah nodded. For 5 years, humanity had been intercepting and studying alien communications. They knew everything about Kethar tactics, technology, and psychology. The aliens had no idea they were being watched. "Any changes in their approach?" she asked. "None, Admiral. They are following the same pattern they used in their last 60 conquests. They expect us to surrender immediately or offer token resistance." Captain Jake Morrison approached from across the room. At 38, he was the youngest ship commander in human history, but he had earned his rank through years of preparation for this exact scenario. His calm demeanor hid the excitement of finally putting their plans into action. "Admiral," he said, "the Phantom Squadron is ready for deployment. All pilots are standing by." Sarah looked around the command center at her team. These men and women represented humanity's best and brightest, recruited from every nation on Earth. They had worked in absolute secrecy for decades, preparing for the day when humanity would face its first real test among the stars. "Before we begin," Sarah said, "let me remind you all how we got here." The main display changed to show images from 30 years ago, when humanity first detected alien radio transmissions. The early signals had been exciting proof that life existed beyond Earth. But as linguists decoded the messages, excitement turned to fear. The Kethar Dominion was systematically conquering every inhabited world in their path. They showed no mercy, no interest in peace, and no respect for other forms of life. Entire civilizations had been enslaved or destroyed. "When we realized what was coming," Sarah continued, "our leaders made a choice. Instead of preparing for traditional warfare, we would develop something completely new." Dr. Webb stepped forward to take over the explanation. "The key insight came from studying quantum mechanics at the subatomic level. We discovered that matter and energy exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Most beings can only perceive 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time, but the universe actually has 11 dimensions." He gestured to the display, which now showed complex mathematical formulas. "By manipulating quantum fields, we learned to shift objects partially into these other dimensions. A ship using dimensional phase technology becomes invisible, untouchable, and able to pass through solid matter," Captain Morrison added. "But the real breakthrough was learning to selectively phase individual components. We can make our weapons solid while keeping our hulls intangible, or we can phase specific parts of an enemy ship while leaving the rest untouched." Sarah watched her team absorb this information. Even after years of development, the technology still seemed like magic. "The aliens have conquered 164 worlds using overwhelming firepower. They have never faced an enemy that could simply step outside of normal reality." The display now showed technical specifications of humanity's 12 ships. They looked nothing like the crude rockets the aliens expected. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering, powered by zero-point energy and armed with weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics. "The Phoenix-class interceptors," Dr. Webb explained, "are designed around a single principle: absolute technological superiority through dimensional manipulation. Each ship can phase in and out of normal space-time at will." Lieutenant Commander Torres pulled up a tactical display. "Based on our analysis of Kethar combat records, they rely on 3 main advantages: superior numbers, heavy armor, and overwhelming firepower. Our ships neutralize all 3. Sarah walked to the center of the room. Around her, displays showed the approaching alien fleet in perfect detail. 300 massive warships, each one capable of destroying cities, all approaching Earth with Complete confidence. They think we are primitives, she said. Let them keep thinking that. The plan humanity had developed was elegantly simple. For decades, they had maintained the illusion of primitive technology. Radio transmissions were carefully edited to hide any advanced developments. Space launches used inefficient chemical rockets to disguise humanity's real capabilities. Even Earth's military communications were designed to sound crude and unorganized. The psychological warfare aspect is crucial, explained Dr. Lisa Park, the mission's xenopsychologist. The Kethar have never encountered serious resistance. Their entire military doctrine is based on intimidation, followed by overwhelming attack. They have no procedures for dealing with an enemy that refuses to follow their expected patterns. Captain Morrison brought up recordings of alien communications. Listen to how they talk about us, he said, playing back Admiral Zechthal's briefings. The alien commander's voice was filled with contempt and boredom, as if conquering Earth was merely a training exercise. Perfect, Sarah said. Overconfidence is their greatest weakness. Dr. Webb activated another display showing Earth's hidden, defensive installations. To alien sensors, Earth looked exactly as primitive as expected, but the reality was far different. Every major city had underground bunkers protected by dimensional phase shields. The moon base was completely invisible, existing partially outside normal space. Orbital platforms that appeared to be simple communication. Satellites were actually sensor arrays more sophisticated than anything the aliens possessed. Most importantly, Dr. Webb continued, we have been studying their technology for years. We know exactly how their shields work, how their weapons function, and how their ships are constructed. They know nothing about us. The command center grew quiet as everyone contemplated the approaching battle. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment, but they were still facing an enemy with 3 centuries of conquest experience. Admiral, asked Lieutenant Torres, what if our intelligence is wrong? What if they have capabilities we have not detected? Sarah considered the question carefully. Then we adapt. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to improvise and overcome. We survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters by being smarter than our problems. Captain Morrison checked his chronometer. The enemy fleet will reach the edge of our system in 16 hours. Should I order the squadron to their ships? Not yet, Sarah replied. Let them get closer. We want them to be completely committed before we reveal ourselves. Dr. Webb pulled up a star chart showing the Sol system. Based on their previous conquests, the Kethar will approach Earth directly. They will position their fleet in orbit and demand surrender. When we do not respond, they will begin bombardment of major cities. That is when we strike, Sarah said. The moment they begin targeting civilians, they become legitimate military targets under every law of war humanity has ever created. The next few hours passed quickly as final preparations were completed. All 12 ships ran final systems checks. Pilots reviewed their mission parameters one last time. Ground crews loaded the specialized equipment that would make victory possible. Sarah walked through the hangar where humanity's secret fleet waited. The ships were beautiful in their own way, sleek and angular, covered in surfaces that seemed to bend light around them. Each one represented decades of research and development by the finest minds on Earth. Magnificent, said Dr. Webb, joining her in the hangar. Sometimes I cannot believe we actually built them. Building them was the easy part, Sarah replied. Using them will be the real test. Captain Morrison emerged from his ship, the lead vessel designated Phoenix 1. Admiral, my pilot is asking about rules of engagement. What are our exact parameters? Sarah had thought about this question for months. Humanity was about to announce itself to the galaxy by completely destroying an alien fleet. The message they sent would determine how other species viewed them for generations to come. Total elimination, she said finally. No survivors, no wreckage, no evidence that we used advanced technology. The galaxy needs to see that threatening. Earth has consequences, but they should not understand how those consequences were delivered. Dr. Webb looked troubled. Admiral, are we certain about this approach? Perhaps we could capture some of their ships, try to communicate with them. Doctor, they have conquered and enslaved 164 civilizations. Their own communications make it clear that they see other species as nothing more than resources to be exploited. This is not a misunderstanding that can be resolved with conversation. Sarah walked to the observation window overlooking Earth. The planet looked peaceful. From here, blue and white and beautiful. 8 billion humans lived their daily lives down there, completely unaware that their entire future would be decided in the next 24 hours. Besides, she continued, our analysis of Kethar psychology is very clear. They respect only strength. If we show them mercy, they will interpret it as weakness and return with a larger fleet. Captain Morrison nodded. Understood, Admiral. Total elimination it is. As the alien fleet drew closer, Sarah gathered her senior staff for one final briefing. The main display showed the enemy formation in perfect detail. Massive battleships at the center, cruisers and destroyers arranged in protective screens, fighter carriers ready to launch attack squadrons. Gentlemen and ladies, Sarah began. In a few hours, humanity will fight its first interstellar war. Our ancestors fought with spears and arrows, then guns and cannons, then tanks and aircraft, then missiles and nuclear weapons. Today, we fight with the fundamental forces of reality itself. She paused, looking at each of her officers in turn. The enemy expects primitives armed with chemical rockets. Instead, they will face the most advanced military technology in known space. They have studied us for months and learned nothing useful. We have studied them for years and know everything that matters. Dr. Webb activated the final tactical display. Phase 1. Allow the enemy fleet to enter Earth orbit and begin their standard intimidation tactics. Phase 2. When they begin targeting civilian populations, launch all 12 ships in full stealth mode. Phase 3. Selective elimination of the entire enemy fleet using dimensional phase weapons. How long do we estimate for complete elimination? Asked Captain Morrison. Based on simulations, Dr. Webb replied, no more than 20 minutes. The room fell silent. 20 minutes to destroy 300 alien warships that had conquered most of the known galaxy. It seemed impossible, but the mathematics were solid. Admiral, asked Lieutenant Torres, what happens after we eliminate their fleet? Sarah smiled grimly. Then we send a message to the Kethar Dominion and any other species that might be watching. Earth is off limits. Permanently. The final hours before contact passed quickly. Around the solar system, automated sensors tracked the approaching fleet with perfect precision. Deep space telescopes recorded every detail of alien technology and tactics. Communication arrays prepared to broadcast humanity's message to the stars. And on Luna, 12 ships waited in dimensional hiding, ready to teach the galaxy that humanity was far more dangerous than anyone suspected. Admiral Zekthul felt the familiar thrill of approaching victory as his fleet dropped out of warp at the edge of the Sol system. Through the great viewing window of his flagship, he could see the small yellow star that powered this primitive world. Somewhere in that system waited Earth and its helpless human population. Fleet status report, he commanded. Commander Kexton consulted his displays. All 300 vessels have arrived safely, Admiral. Formation is tight, and weapon systems are at full readiness. No mechanical problems reported. Zekthul nodded with satisfaction. The 7th Conquest Fleet was the pride of the Dominion military. Every ship had been built for war and crewed by warriors trained from childhood for battle. They had never failed to achieve victory. Sensor sweep of the system, he ordered. His sensor officer, Lieutenant Kexral, began the detailed scan that preceded every conquest. Admiral, I am detecting one inhabited planet in the 3rd orbital position. Approximately 8 billion life forms detected. Primitive orbital installations around the planet, consistent with early space-age technology. Any defensive installations? Negative, sir. I am detecting several small satellites and what appears to be a simple space station, but no weapon signatures. No shields detected around the planet or its installations. Zekthul smiled. This was exactly what their intelligence reports had predicted. The humans had barely begun to explore their own system and had no real defenses against a serious military force. What about their spacecraft? Lieutenant Kethar adjusted his sensors. I am detecting approximately 40 small craft in various orbits around the planet. All appear to be civilian vessels or basic research platforms. No military characteristics detected. 40 ships, Commander Kethar laughed. Against our 300, this will be over before it begins. The bridge crew shared his amusement. They had faced fleets of thousands and still achieved victory. 40 primitive human ships would not even provide target practice for their fighter squadrons. Set course for the third planet, Kethar commanded. Standard conquest approach. All ships maintain attack formation. The massive fleet began moving through the Saul system like a pack of predators approaching helpless prey. Their ships were enormous, each one bristling with weapons that could crack planets. The smallest Dominion destroyer was larger than the biggest human spacecraft. As they passed the asteroid belt between the fourth and fifth planets, Scout Captain Vexnin approached Admiral Kethar with a worried expression. Admiral, I am still detecting those unusual energy readings from the human moon, she said. Kethar was getting tired of her constant concerns. Captain, we have been over this many times. What exactly are you detecting? Quantum fluctuations, sir. Very subtle, but definitely artificial. The patterns suggest some kind of advanced technology. Show me the data. Vexnin activated a portable display showing sensor readings from Earth's moon. The data was confusing, with energy signatures that appeared and disappeared without explanation. Commander Kethar examined the readings and shrugged. Probably interference from their primitive nuclear reactors. These early civilizations always have messy energy signatures. Sir, Vexnin persisted, I have seen nuclear reactor signatures before. This is different. The quantum patterns are too organized, too purposeful. Kethar studied the display for a moment. The readings were indeed strange, but they were also very weak. Whatever was causing them could not possibly threaten his fleet. Captain, he said finally, even if the humans have some advanced technology, on their moon, what could it possibly do against 300 warships? We have shields that can stop stellar radiation. We have weapons that can destroy moons. A few unusual energy readings are not cause for concern. Vexnin saluted reluctantly. Yes, sir. As the fleet continued toward Earth, other strange observations began to accumulate. The human planet seemed unusually quiet for a world facing conquest. Most civilizations increased their communications dramatically when a Dominion fleet appeared. They sent desperate messages between their governments, tried to coordinate defenses, or broadcast surrender offers. Earth was doing none of these things. The planet had gone almost completely silent. Communication status, Kethar called out. His communications officer, Lieutenant Dexvor, looked up from his station. Sir, human communications have decreased by 90% since we entered their system. They are broadcasting only basic civilian signals. Are they trying to hide from us? It appears so, sir, but their attempts are pathetic. We can easily detect their cities, their industrial centers, and their population concentrations. They cannot hide from Dominion sensors. This was strange behavior, but not unprecedented. Some primitive races tried to hide when faced with overwhelming force. It never worked, but it was a natural response to fear. The fleet crossed the orbit of Mars, the fourth planet. Earth was, now clearly visible, a blue and white sphere that looked peaceful and defenseless. Orbital telescopes showed details of the planet's surface: cities, farmland, forests, and oceans. Billions of humans went about their daily lives, apparently unaware that their world was about to be conquered. Any change in defensive posture? Kethar asked. None, Admiral, Lieutenant Kethar reported. No military formations detected. No weapon systems powering up. No shield generators activating. They appear to be completely defenseless. Commander Kethar shook his head in amazement. Either these humans are incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Probably stupid, Kethar replied. Most primitive races cannot comprehend the power of a Dominion fleet until they see it demonstrated. As they approached Earth's moon, the strange energy readings that troubled Scout Captain Vexnin grew stronger. She monitored the data carefully, trying to understand what she was seeing. The quantum fluctuations were becoming more organized, more purposeful. It was as if something on the moon was responding to their approach, but her sensors showed no structures, no ships, no installations of any kind. The moon appeared to be a dead, airless rock. "Admiral," she called out, "the energy readings are intensifying. I strongly recommend caution." Zekthul was losing patience with her warnings. "Captain, for the last time, we are the 7th conquest fleet of the Kethar Dominion. We have quantum shields, plasma cannons, and enough firepower to sterilize this entire system. What could possibly threaten us?" Before Vexinen could answer, the fleet's automated systems began detecting additional anomalies. Space around Earth seemed to be behaving strangely. Sensor beams were bending in impossible ways. Gravity readings fluctuated without explanation. Even the background radiation of space showed unusual patterns. But these readings were subtle, barely detectable even by Dominion sensors. Whatever was causing them was operating at the very limits of known physics. "Sensor anomalies detected," Lieutenant Kexrel reported. "Shall I investigate?" "Negative," Zekthul replied. "We are here to conquer, not to study local phenomena. Continue approach to standard orbital position." The fleet moved into orbit around Earth, positioning themselves for the standard intimidation display that began every conquest. The massive ships arranged themselves in a pattern designed to be visible from the planet's surface. Weapons systems powered up, ready to demonstrate Dominion might. "Open communication channels," Zekthul commanded. "Prepare to broadcast surrender demands." While his communications officer prepared the standard conquest message, Zekthul walked to the great viewing window. Below him, Earth turned slowly in the void. Cities sparkled on the dark side of the planet. Clouds swirled over blue oceans. It was a beautiful world, and it would soon belong to the Dominion. "Admiral," Lieutenant Dexvor called out, "communication systems are ready. Shall I broadcast?" "Proceed." The standard message began transmitting toward Earth on all frequencies. It was a message that had been broadcast to 164 worlds before, always with the same result: immediate surrender or swift destruction. "People of Earth," the message began, "you are now under the authority of the Kethar Dominion. Your primitive civilization is no match for our military might. Surrender immediately, and your leaders will be allowed to administer your world under Dominion supervision. Resist, and your cities will be reduced to ash." The message continued for several minutes, outlining the terms of surrender and the consequences of resistance. It was a masterpiece of psychological warfare, designed to break enemy morale before the first shot was fired. Message transmitted. "Admiral," Lieutenant Dexvor reported, "we are monitoring all human communication channels for a response." Zekthul returned to his command chair. Now came the waiting period. Most civilizations responded within hours, either with surrender or with desperate attempts at negotiation. A few tried to fight, but those battles never lasted long. Hours passed. Earth remained silent. "Any response?" Zekthul asked. "None, sir. Human communications remain at minimum levels. No government broadcasts, no military coordination, no panic transmissions. It is as if they are ignoring us completely." This was unprecedented behavior. Even the most primitive races showed some reaction to a Dominion fleet. Fear, anger, desperation, something. But the humans seemed to be treating the most powerful military force in the galaxy as if it did not exist. "Perhaps they do not understand the message," Commander Kexton suggested. "Their technology might be too primitive to receive our transmissions properly." "Impossible," Lieutenant Dexvor replied. "We are broadcasting on every frequency they use for communication. Their receivers are definitely picking up our signal." Scout Captain Vexinen approached the command area again. "Admiral, I believe the humans are preparing something. The energy readings from their moon have reached unprecedented levels. What kind of preparations could they possibly be making?" Zekthul demanded. "We have them completely outgunned and outnumbered." "I do not know, sir, but the quantum signatures suggest they have technology far beyond what we observed in their public transmissions. Commander Kexton examined Vexnan's data. Even if they have some hidden technology, it cannot be very advanced. We would have detected any major industrial installations or weapon systems. Unless, Vexnan said quietly, they have technology we do not know how to detect. The bridge fell silent. This was a disturbing thought. Dominion sensors were the most advanced in the known galaxy. The idea that primitive humans might possess sensor-invisible technology seemed impossible. Ridiculous, Zekthul said finally. If such technology existed, we would have encountered it in our previous conquests. The humans are probably just paralyzed by fear. But as more hours passed without response, even Zekthul began to feel uneasy. The human world below them continued its normal activities. Cities remained lit. Aircraft moved through their skies. Spacecraft continued their routine orbital missions. It was as if 8 billion humans had decided that a fleet of alien warships was not worth their attention. Admiral, Lieutenant Kexrel called out, "I am detecting movement among the human spacecraft. Several of their orbiting vessels are changing position." Zekthul felt a surge of interest. Finally, some reaction. "Show me." The main display lit up with a tactical view of Earth's orbital space. A few dozen small human spacecraft were indeed moving, but not in any pattern that suggested military preparation. They seemed to be moving away from Earth as if evacuating. "Cowards," Commander Kexton said with disgust. "They are abandoning their own planet." "Let them run," Zekthul replied. "It will make occupation easier if their leadership is already gone." But Scout Captain Vexnan was studying the movement patterns carefully. "Admiral, this does not look like evacuation. The spacecraft are moving to specific positions. It almost looks like they are clearing the battlefield." "Clearing the battlefield for what? They have no weapons that could threaten us." Before anyone could answer, the quantum readings from Earth's moon suddenly spiked to incredible levels. Energy patterns that had been barely detectable became blindingly obvious. Space around the moon began to twist in ways that violated every known law of physics. "Admiral," Lieutenant Kexrel called out in alarm, "something is happening to the human moon. The energy readings are off all scales." Zekthul stared at the display showing Earth's moon. To the naked eye, it looked the same as before, gray, cratered, lifeless. But the sensor readings showed something impossible. The moon was generating more energy than some stars. "How is this possible?" Commander Kexton whispered. Scout Captain Vexnan checked her instruments one more time. "Admiral, I recommend immediate withdrawal. Whatever the humans have been hiding, it is far beyond anything we expected." Zekthul felt the first stirrings of real concern, but his pride would not allow him to retreat. The Dominion had never fled from battle. They had never been defeated by primitive aliens. "Maintain position," he ordered. "Charge all weapon systems. If the humans want to show us their hidden technology, we will show them the power of the Kethar Dominion." Around Earth, 300 alien warships prepared for battle, their weapons aimed at the small blue planet below. They had conquered 164 worlds and never known defeat. They were about to discover that some victories come with a price too terrible to imagine. Admiral Zekthul stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Earth turn slowly beneath his fleet. 24 hours had passed since his surrender demands were broadcast, and the humans had not responded. Their silence was beginning to feel less like fear and more like contempt. "Status of all weapon systems," he commanded. "All plasma cannons charged and ready, Admiral," reported his weapons officer. "Quantum torpedo launchers armed, fighter squadrons prepared for immediate launch." Zekthul nodded grimly. If the humans would not surrender, he would demonstrate the cost of defying the Dominion. One destroyed city should be enough to break their spirit. "Target their largest population center," he ordered. "Prepare for limited bombardment." But before his weapons officer could comply, Scout Captain Vexnan rushed onto the bridge with a look of pure terror on her face. "Admiral," she called out, "the energy readings from their moon just increased by 1,000%. Something is coming." Zekthul turned to look at the tactical display. The moon still appeared normal to optical sensors, but the energy signatures were beyond anything he had ever seen. It was as if someone had built a star inside the small celestial body. "What kind of energy?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. The patterns do not match any technology in our databases, but the power levels suggest weapons capable of destroying entire fleets." Commander Kexton studied the readings with growing alarm. "Admiral, perhaps we should withdraw to a safer distance while we analyze this phenomenon." For a moment, Zekthul considered retreat. The energy readings were indeed frightening. But then he remembered his reputation, his duty, and the pride of the Dominion. 300 warships did not flee from primitive humans. "Negative," he said firmly. "We are the 7th Conquest Fleet. We do not retreat from unknowns. All ships maintain battle formation and prepare to engage whatever emerges from that moon." Deep within Luna's hidden chambers, Admiral Sarah Chen watched the alien fleet through sensors that existed partially outside normal spacetime. The Kethar ships hung in orbit like predators, their weapons aimed at Earth's defenseless cities. "Admiral," reported Captain Morrison, "the enemy has begun charging their main weapons. They appear ready to begin bombardment." Sarah nodded calmly. This was the moment they had prepared for. "All ships, prepare for phase transition. Authorization, Phantom Protocol." Throughout the lunar base, alarms chimed softly as humanity's secret fleet prepared to reveal itself. 12 ships, each one a masterpiece of technology that the aliens could not imagine, began the process of shifting from dimensional hiding into normal space. Dr. Webb monitored the phase generators with nervous excitement. "Dimensional barriers are stable, Admiral. All ships report ready for combat emergence." "Rules of engagement are clear," Sarah announced to all ship commanders. "Total elimination of the enemy fleet. No survivors, no wreckage, no evidence of our technology. The galaxy must learn that Earth is protected, but they must not learn how." Captain Morrison's voice came over the communication system from his ship. "Phoenix Squadron understands, Admiral. We will show them what humanity has learned about war." Sarah took one last look at Earth through the viewing screen. 8 billion humans lived their lives on that beautiful blue world, most of them unaware that their fate was about to be decided in the next few minutes. "All ships," she commanded, "commence phase transition. Engage the enemy." Admiral Zekthul was studying the energy readings from Earth's moon when his sensor officer suddenly screamed in alarm. "Admiral, multiple contacts emerging from the moons. Surface, 12 vessels, origin unknown." Zekthul spun to face the tactical display. Where empty space had existed moments before, 12 ships now hung in the void near Earth's moon. But these were not the primitive human spacecraft his intelligence reports had described. The ships were sleek and angular, their surfaces seeming to bend light around them. They moved with impossible grace, accelerating without visible propulsion systems. As Zekthul watched in growing horror, the strange vessels began approaching his fleet at speeds that should have been impossible. "How did they emerge from the moon?" Commander Kexton whispered. "Our sensors detected no launch bays, no surface installations." "Impossible," Zekthul breathed. "Sensors, give me detailed scans of those ships." Lieutenant Kexral worked frantically at his console. "Admiral, the sensor data makes no sense. These vessels appear to be phasing in and out of normal space. Sometimes they register solid. Sometimes they appear transparent. Sometimes they vanish completely from our instruments." "Weapon signatures?" "Unknown, sir. I am detecting energy patterns I have never seen before. Their technology appears to be based on principles our science does not understand." Zekthul felt the first real fear of his military career. In 3 centuries of conquest, the Dominion had never encountered anything like this. These ships violated everything he knew about physics and engineering. "All ships, red alert," he commanded. "Unknown vessels approaching, prepare to engage." But even as his fleet prepared for battle, the human ships began demonstrating capabilities that defied belief. They accelerated without inertial effects, turned without momentum, and moved through space as if the normal laws of physics simply did not apply to them. Captain Morrison sat in the command chair of Phoenix 1, watching the alien fleet through displays that showed reality from 11 different dimensions. The Kethar ships were massive and impressive, but they were also completely predictable. Humanity had studied their designs for years. All ships assume attack formation, he broadcast to his squadron. Remember, we want complete elimination with no trace of our technology. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency. They had trained for this moment for years, running countless simulations against Kethar tactical doctrines. The aliens were about to discover that all their experience meant nothing against an enemy that played by different rules entirely. Phase generators stable, reported his engineering officer. We can maintain combat phasing indefinitely. Weapons, systems, all dimensional disruptors armed and ready, Captain. Targeting systems are locked onto enemy formation. Morrison smiled grimly. The aliens had weapons that could destroy planets, but they were still bound by the limitations of normal space-time. Humanity had learned to step outside those limitations. Begin the attack, he ordered. Admiral Zekthul watched in disbelief as the 12 human ships suddenly became transparent and began passing directly through his fleet. Not around it, not over or under it, but through the hulls of his warships, as if they were made of smoke. Impossible, he shouted. Ships cannot pass through solid matter. Admiral, Lieutenant Kexrel called out in panic. The human vessels are inside our formation. They are materializing inside our ships. On the tactical display, Zekthul could see the impossible truth. Human ships were appearing within the hulls of Dominion vessels, occupying the same space as alien metal and machinery. It should have resulted in massive explosions as matter tried to occupy the same location. Instead, something far more terrifying was happening. The Dominion ships were simply ceasing to exist. Captain Morrison watched through his quantum displays as Phoenix 1 materialized inside the bridge of the alien flagship. For a brief moment, he could see the enemy commander staring directly at him through the dimensional barrier. The alien's face frozen in an expression of absolute terror. Selective phase elimination, Morrison announced to his crew. Remove their command structure, leave the rest for now. His weapons officer activated the dimensional disruptor. The device did not fire energy or projectiles. Instead, it selectively shifted matter into dimensions where it could not exist in normal spacetime. The effect was absolute and irreversible. Admiral Zekthul had 1 second to process the impossible sight of a human warship materializing inside his bridge before the selective phase beam touched him. He felt no pain, no heat, no impact. He simply stopped existing in any meaningful way. The bridge of his flagship vanished section by section as the human ship passed through it, leaving only empty space where complex machinery had been moments before. The rest of the alien vessel continued to exist, but without its command center or crew, it was nothing more than a lifeless hull. Throughout the Dominion fleet, the same impossible process repeated. Human ships phased through alien hulls, selectively removing critical components and crew members. Command bridges vanished. Engineering sections ceased to exist. Weapon systems were erased from reality itself. Scout Captain Vexnan was on the observation deck of a heavy cruiser when she saw a human ship materialize directly in front of her. The vessel was beautiful in its alien design, its hull reflecting light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. For a moment, she stared at the impossible sight of an enemy ship existing inside her own. Then the dimensional disruptor beam touched her, and Vexnan discovered what it felt like to be gently removed from the universe. Commander Kexton had time to send one desperate message before his ship's bridge was selectively erased. All vessels, retreat. The humans have weapons beyond our understanding. They can make matter simply disappear. But there was nowhere to retreat to. The human ships moved through the Dominion fleet like ghosts, untouchable and unstoppable. Plasma cannons fired harmlessly through their phased hulls. Quantum torpedoes passed through them without detonation. The aliens' most powerful weapons were useless against enemies that could step outside normal reality. Dr. Webb monitored the battle from the Lunar Command Center with professional satisfaction. The dimensional phase technology was performing exactly as designed. Enemy ships were being eliminated with surgical precision, their crews and critical systems removed from spacetime while leaving no trace of human weapon signatures. Status report, Admiral Sarah Chen requested. All targets are being systematically eliminated, Dr. Webb replied. No alien weapons have been able to affect our ships. The phase differential is holding perfectly. On the tactical display, the Dominion fleet was vanishing ship by ship. The massive alien vessels simply faded from existence as their critical components were shifted into inaccessible dimensions. Within minutes, 300 warships had been reduced to empty hulls drifting in space. Captain Morrison coordinated the final phase of the attack from Phoenix 1. All ships prepare for complete elimination protocol. Remove all traces of the enemy presence. The human ships began their final pass through the alien fleet. This time they did not selectively target components. Instead, they shifted entire enemy vessels completely out of normal spacetime. The alien hulls, already lifeless, simply faded from existence as if they had never been built. Admiral Sarah Chen watched the conclusion of humanity's first interstellar battle with grim satisfaction. In 17 minutes, her 12 ships had completely eliminated a fleet that had conquered most of the known galaxy. No alien crew members survived. No wreckage remained. No evidence existed that advanced human technology had been used. All ships returned to base, she commanded. Mission accomplished. The human vessels shifted back into dimensional phase and vanished from normal space, leaving the Saul system apparently empty except for Earth and its primitive orbital installations. To any observer, it would appear that the Kethar fleet had simply vanished without explanation. In the space where Admiral Zekthul's flagship had once floated, there was now nothing but vacuum and starlight. The proud commander who had boasted of 164 victories had learned the final lesson of warfare. There is always someone more dangerous than you. The 7th conquest fleet of the Kethar Dominion had traveled 47 light years to conquer a primitive world. They had brought overwhelming firepower and 3 centuries of military experience. They had expected an easy victory over helpless humans. Instead, they had encountered humanity's greatest secret. When faced with extinction, humans do not fight harder. They fight smarter. And sometimes, being smarter means learning how to make your enemies simply stop existing. Supreme Commander Vorthak sat in the war room of the Dominion High Command, staring at reports that made no sense. 6 months had passed since Admiral Zekthul's fleet had departed for Earth, and there had been no word from them since their arrival at the human system. Still no communication from the 7th Conquest Fleet? He asked his aide. None, Supreme Commander, replied Colonel Thexvar. All attempts to reach Admiral Zekthul have failed. The fleet appears to have vanished completely. Vorthak studied the star charts showing the Sol system. By all accounts, this should have been the easiest conquest in Dominion history. The humans were primitive, divided and defenseless. What could possibly have happened to 300 warships? Send the 12th Reconnaissance Squadron to investigate, he ordered. I want to know what happened to our fleet. 3 weeks later, the reconnaissance ships returned with disturbing news. Captain Morkex, the squadron commander, stood before the High Command Council with a confused expression on his scarred face. Supreme Commander, we found no trace of the 7th Conquest Fleet. Anywhere in the Sol system. No wreckage, no debris, no distress beacons. It is as if they never arrived. General Korthun, the oldest member of the council, leaned forward. What about the humans? Did they show signs of recent battle? That is the strange part, General. The humans appear completely unchanged. Their technology remains primitive, their military capabilities are unchanged. They show no evidence of having fought a major space battle. The council chamber fell silent. The disappearance of an entire conquest fleet was unprecedented in Dominion history. 300 ships and their crews had simply vanished without explanation. Could they have suffered a navigation error? Suggested Admiral Nexthor. Perhaps they jumped into a star or black hole? Captain Morkex shook his head. We tracked their warp signatures all the way to Earth orbit, sir. They definitely arrived at their destination. After that, the trail simply ends. Supreme Commander Vorthak felt a chill of unease. In his 50 years of military service, he had never encountered a mystery like this. Fleets did not simply disappear without leaving any trace. What is your assessment of human capabilities? He asked. Unchanged, Supreme Commander. They still use chemical rockets for space travel. Their weapons are still primitive projectiles and explosives. Our sensors detected no advanced technology that could threaten a Dominion warship. The Council debated the mystery for hours. Some members suggested that the humans had somehow managed to hide advanced technology from Dominion sensors. Others argued that such deception was impossible. A few wondered if some unknown alien race had intervened to protect Earth. In the end, they reached the only logical conclusion available to them. The 7th Conquest Fleet has been declared lost to unknown stellar phenomena, Vorthak announced. Earth will be marked as a low-priority target pending further investigation. But even as the official report was filed, nagging doubts remained. How did an entire fleet vanish so completely? And why did the humans show no signs of having been attacked? The answer came 6 months later, in a transmission that changed everything. Admiral Sarah Chen sat in the communications center of the lunar base, reviewing the message she was about to broadcast to the galaxy. After a year of careful preparation, humanity was ready to announce itself to the wider universe. The message would be transmitted on frequencies known to be monitored by every major alien civilization. "Are you certain about this approach, Admiral?" asked Dr. Webb. "Once we broadcast this message, there will be no going back. The galaxy will know that Earth possesses advanced technology." Sarah nodded calmly. "Doctor, the galaxy needs to understand that Earth is not a target for conquest. This message will save lives on both sides." She activated the transmission array and began to speak. "To the Kethar Dominion and any other species considering aggressive action against Earth, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Solar Defense Command. 6 months ago, your 7th Conquest Fleet arrived in our system with the intention of conquering our world. In response, we chose to make them never have existed at all. The transmission included detailed sensor recordings of the battle, showing the complete elimination of the Dominion fleet. The recordings were edited to show the results without revealing the specific technology used, but the message was clear. Earth was far from defenseless. "We are not conquerors," Sarah continued. "We have no interest in expanding beyond our own system or interfering with other civilizations. But if you threaten our world, we will not destroy your fleets. We will simply decide that they never were." The message concluded with technical specifications that proved human science was centuries ahead of anything the Dominion possessed, along with a simple warning: Earth was permanently off limits to all hostile forces. When the transmission reached Dominion space 3 days later, it caused panic throughout the High Command. Supreme Commander Vorthak watched the recordings in stunned silence as human ships phase-shifted through his fleet and made them vanish from existence. "This is impossible," whispered General Corthon. "No species possesses technology this advanced." "Apparently one does," Vorthak replied grimly. "And we just tried to conquer them." The recording showed technology that violated every known law of physics. Ships that could pass through solid matter. Weapons that could selectively remove objects from reality. Defensive capabilities that made human vessels completely untouchable. Admiral Nexthor studied the technical data with growing alarm. "Supreme Commander, if this information is accurate, these humans possess science that is centuries beyond our own. Their weakest ship could probably destroy our entire fleet. Then why did they not attack us after eliminating the 7th Fleet?" asked Colonel Thexvar. Vorthak replayed Admiral Chen's message. "Because they are not interested in conquest. They simply want to be left alone." The implications were staggering. For 3 centuries, the Dominion had believed themselves to be the most advanced military force in the galaxy. Now they discovered that a species they had dismissed as primitive possessed weapons that could erase entire fleets from existence. Emergency. Sessions of the High Command lasted for weeks as military leaders struggled to understand the new reality. Earth was not just defended, it was protected by technology that made traditional warfare obsolete. "What do we do about this?" asked General Corthon during one heated debate. Supreme Commander Vorthak had given this question considerable thought. "We do exactly what they asked. We leave them alone." "But Supreme Commander," protested Admiral Nexthor, "they have made us look weak. Other species will think the mighty Dominion can be defeated. Other species will think the Dominion is wise enough not to attack an enemy with superior technology," Vorthak corrected. There is no shame in avoiding a battle you cannot win. Then why? Final decision was unanimous, though reached reluctantly. Earth would be marked as a forbidden zone in all Dominion star charts. No ships would approach the Sol system. The humans would be left in peace. But the psychological impact of the defeat spread far beyond the Dominion. News of the missing fleet and humanity's message reached every corner of the galaxy within months. The story grew with each retelling. An entire conquest fleet had vanished without trace, eliminated by humans who could make matter cease to exist. The Zephyrian Trade Federation immediately canceled plans to establish mining colonies in human space. The Crystalline Hierarchy, known for their aggressive expansion policies, quietly removed all references to Earth from their territorial ambitions. Even the mysterious Void Walkers, who had never been defeated in battle, marked human space as approach with extreme caution. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the observation lounge of Phoenix 1, watching Earth turn slowly in space. The battle that had made humanity's reputation among the stars seemed like a distant memory now. His ship and its 11 companions remained, hidden in dimensional phase, ready to defend Earth against any threat. "Captain," called his communications officer, "we are receiving a message from Admiral Chen. She wants to see you in the command center." Morrison made his way through the lunar base to the main operations room. Admiral Sarah Chen was studying reports from deep space monitoring stations, tracking the movements of alien fleets throughout the galaxy. "Captain, how are your ships holding up?" she asked. "All systems operating at peak efficiency, Admiral. The crews are ready for anything." Sarah smiled. "That is good to hear, because our message has had some interesting effects." She activated the main display, showing a map of local galactic space. Colored indicators marked the positions of various alien civilizations and their military forces. Since our broadcast, we have detected significant changes in alien military positioning. Most species are moving their fleets away from our borders. The Dominion has pulled back all forces to a minimum distance of 50 light-years. Morrison studied the display with professional interest. "They are giving us a very wide buffer zone. More than that. Our long-range sensors have detected at least 12 different species that have changed their expansion plans to avoid human space entirely." The message was even more effective than we hoped. Dr. Webb joined them in the command center, carrying data tablets filled with analysis reports. "Admiral, we are receiving indirect communications from several alien governments. Not direct contact attempts. Cease to exist." "What about our long-term plans?" Morrison asked. "We continue as before," Sarah replied. "Earth remains officially primitive and defenseless. Our real capabilities stay hidden. The galaxy knows we can defend ourselves, but they do not know how." This was the key to humanity's strategy. By demonstrating overwhelming defensive capability, without revealing specific technologies, they had created the perfect deterrent. Other species knew that attacking Earth would result in complete annihilation, but they had no idea how to defend against human weapons. "Any signs of species trying to develop countermeasures to our technology?" Morrison asked. Dr. Webb shook his head. "How do you develop countermeasures against technology you cannot understand? Our dimensional phase systems operate on principles that most species have not even theorized about." The beauty of humanity's position was its sustainability. They had achieved perfect security without needing to conquer anyone or expand beyond their own system. Other civilizations could continue their wars and conquests as long as they left Earth alone. "Admiral," Morrison said, "what do you think will happen when other species eventually develop technology that rivals our own?" Sarah considered the question carefully. "Then we will have to stay ahead of them. Humanity's greatest advantage has always been our ability to innovate and adapt. As long as we keep improving our technology, we will remain secure." She walked to the great viewing window overlooking Earth. The planet looked peaceful and beautiful, its blue oceans and white clouds hiding the billions of humans who lived their lives in safety. "Besides," she added, "by the time other species catch up to our current technology, we will have moved far beyond it. Dr. Webb's team is already working on concepts that make dimensional phase technology look primitive." Dr. Webb smiled. "We have some very interesting ideas about manipulating time itself, but those projects are still decades away from practical application. The three of them stood in comfortable silence, watching Earth turn in space. Humanity had faced its first test among the stars and passed with perfect success. They had proven that advanced technology, carefully applied, could provide absolute security without requiring aggression or expansion. In the depths of space, the automated monitoring stations continued their silent vigil. They watched for approaching fleets, tracked alien communications, and analyzed any signs of potential threats. The galaxy was a dangerous place, filled with species that solved problems through conquest and violence, but Earth was safe, protected by technology that transcended the normal rules of physics and defended by humans who understood that sometimes the best way to win a war is to make sure it never starts. The message had been received and understood. Throughout the galaxy, Earth was off limits permanently and absolutely. Any species foolish enough to test that boundary would simply cease to exist, erased from reality as if they had never been born. And in the hidden chambers beneath Luna's surface, 12 ships waited in dimensional phase, ready to remind the universe that humanity had learned the ultimate lesson of survival. The most dangerous enemies are the ones who refuse to fight by anyone else's rules.